So hi everyone, my name is Sandrine and I am the Equality Officer in the PSU. So today we're joined by Clodagh. So Clodagh, if you can let us know a bit about yourself and your initiative of any time of the month.
Sure. So like Sandrine said, my name is Clodagh Guerin and I'm currently a fourth year in UL. I study English and history, but hopefully I'll go on to do a postgrad and I'll end up in the Students Union with you. I founded an initiative a couple of years ago called Any Time of the Month, and the ultimate goal is to end period poverty, but obviously we know that's a mammoth task. So we're going with the tagline, alleviating the effects of period poverty in Ireland through education and creating a network of friendly strangers. So that's the elevator pitch, if you will.
Yeah, and then what inspired you to create this initiative? Because as you said, like you're just in fourth year, so like you must have been like inspired just from a young age then.
Yeah, I remember like I think I'd be very into kind of tackling like more kind of tricky social issues and things like that. And I would consider myself an activist, and I feel like I have been since I was quite young. But this was quite a subconscious thing. I didn't realize the magnitude of the issue I was addressing when I first started asking these questions. And I remember it stemmed from, I think it was in 2019, and it was like charity week in UL or something. And you know, when you go to like the courtyard or anything like that, and they're handing out free things all the time. And if you go into the Students Union, like baskets of condoms are free. And this is the thing in every university. And then I kind of started thinking about it even more. And I was like, you know, you would never go into a bathroom somewhere and be like, gosh, they have toilet roll. That's so thoughtful, you know, like
Yeah.
you would never think things like that. So that teamed with the kind of complete disposability of things like condoms and free biros and just free things in general. But yet, if you were to ask for a free pad, which we can't do that, that's too expensive. Can't do that.
Yeah.
And again, I didn't think about it with any great depth at the start. I thought, like, gosh, wouldn't it be really nice if in your college where you spend hours every week, this was just one less thing you had to think about? And then I realized, of course, that the University of Limerick is a sanctuary college. So I thought to myself, like, gosh, you know, I'm looking at this with such a position of privilege. I've been caught on the hop a few times where I got my period and I didn't have anything, but I've never faced period poverty. Then I realized that like a sanctuary student would probably live on less than €40 a week, and that has to cover everything. So if you throw in an unexpected period on top of that, or the painkillers you need to take when you're on a period, or if something goes wrong and you need a GP visit, it's an extortionate cost for someone like that. And then it just kind of spirals and spirals. And again, I did not realize the magnitude of the issue I was addressing until I started digging and started asking these questions and started unearthing the reluctance of people who kind of knew what it was but didn't want to talk about it. So that's how it started. It started in 2019. And will I go into like how we founded it and how we
Yeah,
started
of
it?
course. Yeah, of course.
Cool. So how it started initially was I had this great idea, and it was fostered very lovingly by Dr. Carrie Griffin as well. I was on my work experience with her at the time, and we were kind of, there would be a solid 15 minutes of chit chat before any work was done. And I remember bouncing these ideas off her, and she was like, go for it. This is fantastic. It's something people could really get behind. So we had this idea that it was, you know, perhaps I said, you know, if you could identify someone, or if you could identify a place or a building or a students' union, and you could identify them easily and know I can get period products in there in a discreet and friendly way. And that was the very important thing. It needs to be discreet and it needs to be friendly. And how would we do that? How would you recognize people? So we designed this tiny, like very, very discreet logo. If you haven't seen it, it's literally just a green tick on a pink background. You would have no idea what it was about if you didn't know, really. And I said people would see someone wearing that and know that they could approach them for either access to a product or to be directed to the nearest place where products are freely available, or they would see it on a bathroom door or someone's office, and they would know subconsciously but kind of very safely that, right, period products are there if I need them, and this is how I identify it. So that's how it started way back when, anyway.
Yeah, no, that's such a clever way, because I think like even as you stated, like you knew like, yeah, the problem was like a magnitude, but like you kind of started it by, I like the way you were like discreet nature, because as we were talking about earlier, like it's such a taboo topic. And I just know like if I was to get my period like in the library, I'm like, oh my God, but like I still have money to like disposable money there to like go and buy the pad. So like as you say, for someone who doesn't have that, like that is a fear that we shouldn't have as women. Do you know?
Absolutely. And you know, like on a grander scale, like a period is something that causes people to miss school, like causes people to miss work. Again, if you're living in direct provision, if you are like if you are well off, or if you don't have that disposable income, like a lot of, if I got my period in the library, I'm like, all right, home time.
Mm-hmm.
Can't sit here, you know, like, and
Yeah.
it's just, and that's an issue. Anything that causes people, but I suppose women in particular, to miss education, to miss valuable time at work or school, I think is a huge issue. And you spoke about the taboo there, and like it's such a telling thing. And again, it was something that I had no idea about when I started asking these initial questions. But like, I'm approaching this again, like I'm quite privileged. I've never known need or want, really. But and then you think about it, and you think about like the dire straits that some people would be in, and that's homeless people and people living in direct provision, but also you have no idea about the kind of cultural norms that people might have that cause different taboos to Irish taboos.
Mm-hmm.
So people have asked me a lot in interviews, like, where do I think that this shame and kind of secrecy around periods come from in Ireland? Of course, I can't speak
Mm-hmm.
for anywhere else, but and I always think that it stems back to that really conservative Christian Irish values. And there's nothing wrong with them in a lot of ways, but I do feel that in Ireland in particular, we have a history that veers to shaming women and embarrassing women and shrouding things like female sexuality and female reproduction, female bodies in a
Mm-hmm.
lot of secrecy and shame. So that's where I feel it comes from an Irish perspective. But again, you have no idea about the cultures present in the room and different taboos and secrets and myths they might have about their own bodies and about periods. So discreet and friendly, most definitely, but also intersectional, and approaching things with a friendly curiosity is how I suppose I would put it. Because if we keep ourselves very neutral and very open to experience and other people, it is for everyone. And I suppose at its root, the initiative would mean absolutely nothing if it wasn't for everyone, you know?
Yeah, no, definitely. And the one thing that I love about the initiative is because you removed yourself from it. So as you stated, like you were like, okay, I can think about this, but I'm in a privileged situation. Like, why not open up my mind and think about, as you stated, like the fact that we are a sanctuary college, and it's so diverse, do you know? And as you stated, like I just think it's amazing at like such a young age to be hyper aware of the different cultures there, because no, do you know, some people do come up with initiatives and they're great, but it only caters to like one type of woman. So do you know, like from a
Absolutely.
young age, being hyper aware of all the differences. So like you were saying that, and you have your links with direct provision with Doris. If you can just let us know a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So very early on, we realized that the individual kind of basis of the program, like having this like one friendly person that you see with the badge, is great, but it's quite small scale. We needed to think of ways that would expand and, you know, improve the reach of it. And of course, because we're a logo, you have to recognize the logo in order to avail of the initiative, I suppose. We needed to like expand the amount of people that knew what it meant. So what we've done in order to drum up more profit is we've started rolling out workshops, and we do these in three different ways. You can do it as part of a students' union in a third level institution. We've had great success with them. UL was our first one, but we've been all over Ireland now, which is fantastic. The second one, which we're working on at the moment, is secondary school education workshops, because I'm sure you're well aware that the Irish education system leaves much to be desired in that department, but we're tackling it, so it's okay. And then the third way is through corporates and through institutions, through their corporate social responsibility initiatives. So kind of like in Castletroy, you'd have the likes of Johnson and Johnson and H&MV and all those places we'd be targeting to kind of roll it out bigger scale. So what that means is that people would, obviously not secondary schools and some students' unions wouldn't, but they would be in a position to pay for that workshop. And it would be everything. It would be education about like, keep your language gender neutral, people menstruate, not just women. Keep your language kind of culturally aware, keep yourself open to experience, and keep emotionally intelligent, where the taboos and stigmas come from, and the facts and figures about periods and period poverty, and how to keep yourself open and aware and friendly in this way. So we would give them that workshop. But the money drummed up from those workshops goes towards fighting period poverty on a much bigger scale, as do the profits from the sales of the individual badges and stickers. But again, we purposefully sell them for a lot less than they're probably worth, but I wanted it to be accessible. So those profits go towards fighting period poverty on a much larger scale. So we partnered with Durris. They were our first partner, because obviously when I was in UL and I realised that UL was a sanctuary student, I was quite radical about it. I ended up writing like articles for Unfuckle, like saying, like kind of questioning the presence of Aramark on campus and everything. And I really dove into it, and I was like, I can't understand how anyone could sit back and watch this. But it's more important than to think, okay, well, this is the situation. We can go for ending it, and we should end direct provision without a shadow of a doubt. But what are we going to do for the people that live there in the interim? So we partnered with Durris, and our profits go towards funding sustainable, eco-friendly menstruation solutions for people living in direct provision. So they go straight to the source, which is fantastic. We also recently made a partnership with Thomond House in Limerick. So that is a homeless shelter, which would deal with a lot of women. So we've made our first donation there as well. And we're looking at making ties with places like the Movement for Asylum Seekers Ireland. And I think we've a partnership kind of in the works with the Simon community as well. So that's how we have it on, where the kind of smaller individual level, like I can approach this person and they'll have a pad, I can go to this bathroom and they'll have a pad. But it's important to address the kind of systematic issue at the same time as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think like that's why I was saying like I'm astounded by your link with direct provision, because I know that when they have been doing not even fundraisers, but like when they're during the summer, like there's been I think DPD Limerick, like where like they're like they were in Castletroy, and like they were accepting donations. And I remember going in with my boyfriend, and I just went and I just got so many period pads, and I literally just came with a whole box, but then again that's because I knew of you, and I was like, again, there's that misconception. It's like, yes, you can get food and everything like that, but little things like period pads, again, it's something that you're not aware of. And like it's amazing then to kind of have you as a role model there to get people thinking about that. Like when you are doing donations, why not period pads, especially because through the lived experience. So you were talking there a little bit about the workshops. So again, like just kind of how did these come about, and like what's the aim that you hope with all of those workshops? Because you said you're doing them from 3 different levels.
Yeah, so I suppose at its root, like as I said, the Irish education system is great in a lot of ways, but lags behind in a lot of ways also. And I don't know about you, but when I was in secondary school, and it wasn't that long ago, the most education I got about periods was in, I think, 5th year biology. And it was a case of woman has period, to have child, the end. And I was like,
oh yeah, no, that
great.
was it. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, in biology. And yeah, no, and I remember that like when my friends, even when we just get period, you just wouldn't talk about it. You'd be so hyper aware and self-conscious, and then you come into college and it's the same. Like I don't think
you're older,
really
but you're not necessarily wiser.
Yeah.
And the other, like I remember the big party trick in my school, and I was in a mixed school now, so it wasn't, I don't know if there would be more camaraderie in an all-girls school, probably not at that age, but if you went into the bathroom and you were with your best friend, you'd ask your best friend to put on the hand dryer while you were unwrapping your pad so people wouldn't hear the rustle. And I just think that's so funny. You're in a girl's bathroom where you know that people are, like, by the laws of probability, that someone else in that bathroom is menstruating at the same time as you, but it had to be this big dirty secret. So that's where I think the want and the hunger for an education side of things came to, because as well as like period poverty and educating people, like this is a reality, and this is the magnitude of the situation we face. Because I think when people think of poverty, they think of like poverty in extremis, and they think of like famine-stricken countries and like developing countries and like people who mightn't have access to food or water. That is absolutely poverty, but poverty can exist in a multitude of scales and can exist on a much smaller scale, much closer to home. So before we conducted and before we started making our workshops, we actually did some surveys of the Castletroy area. It's where we're based, so that was who we surveyed. And a lot of people, I think it was 33% of people, said that they had struggled to afford period products before. 80% of people said they would feel really uncomfortable asking a stranger for a pad or a tampon. But the one that shocked me, and I think the one that proved the need for education, was we asked people, have you ever worn a pad or a tampon or a period product for longer than the recommended time because you couldn't afford another one or you didn't have access to another one? And over 75% of people said, yes, I did do that. And that is period poverty. And people just didn't know. So that, to me, I was like, right, this is something that affects 1 in 4 people in their lifetime, but people don't know what it is, and people could be facing it right now. So that's kind of where the need for the education side of things stemmed from. But then we realized that, you know, a 20-minute workshop of me shouting at people, telling them that period poverty was an issue, probably wouldn't go down very well. So we had to kind of expand it, and what we did was we addressed, like I said, the importance of using gender neutral language, the importance of being culturally aware, the importance of making yourself approachable. Things not to say to someone who gets periods, like, you know, oh, just to mind her, she's only on her period, or oh, at least you're not pregnant, you know, like these microaggressions that like have absolutely no place in a school, in a college, in a workplace. But at the end, it is all about like enforcing these places as positive, safe spaces and comfortable places to work or to study. Because like I said, if a period is something that causes people to miss school or work or elements of their life, it is important that we have that element of education and comfort there. And I do think education is the root of a lot of activism, you know, like educating yourself about issues and seeing how you can tackle them in an informed way.
Yeah, no, definitely. I find the story that you're saying there funny in regards to your friend having to put the like the dryer on, because
Absolutely
I know that
ridiculous.
myself, like the amount of times, like if I was when I was in the library, and then like you'd get the period, and then it's like, oh God, the pads are in the bag. Everyone is going to be looking. So you just, you know, like you're hyper aware, like all the different
You
movements,
put it
you
up
hide,
your
yeah,
sleeve.
you hide it under your sleeve, you're walking, you're like, can people hear me? And again, as you stated, when you do go into that space, like the bathroom, like it's supposed to be like no one, you know, like it's everyone is minding their business. But as you say, like when you look at other people, like you're like, okay, like you could be having a period right now. But again, it's a very isolating thing, which it shouldn't. So I really think that with your campaign by education, which I think it's the key to so many issues as well, it's going to be empowering. So like the next time like that happens when you're in the library, or that happens somewhere else, like you're not going to feel like bad about it, because again, like periods are just a natural thing. So even with the use of language, I think that's really, really good that you're pointing out, because yeah, the amount of times if it's like you're in a bad mood, it's like, oh, are you on your period? And it's like, because I'm a
No, you're
woman.
just being a bit of an arsehole. Yeah,
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
no.
Yeah, exactly. So those languages, again, I think that's why like the workshop is really important, because I think some people do say that, you know, like, oh, at least you're not pregnant. And it's like,
It's so off the cuff, and like
yeah,
you've no, again, it's just this whole idea of that like we have no way of knowing like the personal situation of every person we talk to. We just can't, it's impossible. But you just have to say things like and I don't, like, it's not PC gone mad or anything like bleh, but it's just showing this awareness to, like, why would you say that to someone? What benefit does it have, and how is it constructive? And the other thing about language use is, like, in our workshop we have this slide, and it's about, like, I know there's all these funny things you can call your period. Like, I remember someone calling it Shark Week once, and I thought it was absolutely hilarious. But there's this thing, it's like, yeah, that's funny, but again, you're setting up the issue as a joke, and
yeah,
you're setting it up as a joke. And whilst it is funny, you're having a laugh at the expense of other people. So there is, like, addressing it as it is, I think, is a huge thing. And by normalizing that, like, telling people, like, I'm on my period, do you have a pad? Not, do you have gear?
yeah,
Like, that can be construed in many ways, but like,
yeah,
like,
exactly.
you know, but it's just like, call it for what it is. Like, especially when, like, I'm a menstruator, for other menstruators, like, it like, I think some of, like, the progression, it will be found through ourselves. It will be found through ourselves opening up and talking about these things more candidly and openly. Because if we can't do it, how are we to expect other people who don't menstruate to do it?
Yeah, no, definitely. And like I think with what you're saying in that regards to normalizing it, because yeah, I've seen it like where if it's two friends asking each other, it literally looks like a drug deal, because it's like, here you go, and I'm like, yeah, do you know, but then that's why I'm just like, do you know, these are natural things, like, and I've been guilty of doing that. Like if my friend, like when I was in work, and like it's like I'll go over and I like text them, be like, do you have it? And it's like, what am I doing? It's literally,
do you have the stuff?
yeah, no, but it's that, and then it's like you just get the tampon and it's there, and again, it looks so dodgy, but as you stated, like we've kind of normalized that ourselves amongst women, you know, where we've just really fallen into that taboo. So again, it's kind of like with all the different workshops you're doing, like have you felt supported when creating this initiative, or is that support slowly rolling out now?
No, I have to say, since day one, the support has been like, I find it very overwhelming. And I suppose when I was on my own, and when I started this just with like the badge or the sticker and the recognizing places, it got to a point and it grew so much actually that I realized that I couldn't do it on my own. And you know, I make no money off it. I'm a volunteer. I was like, right, I need help, and how can I scale this to what appears to be it's quite large potential. So I joined the Enactus network, and Enactus is actually it's a network of social entrepreneurs, but it's actually a club and society in UL. So I went ahead and I like pitched my project to them. So it started, it's kind of like an incubator for social enterprises for all the world, for students, because I often joke to the people I work with now, I'm like, I study arts, I can barely count to 10, I have no concept of the world of business or anything like that. Like I've great ideas, but I'm very hippy dippy and I want to do everything for free. But you can't do that. It's not sustainable. So I joined Enactus, and I have the most fantastic team working with me. And a lot of them, thankfully, would be business and marketing students. So it's kind of this melting pot of people's skills and people's knowledge to kind of roll it out as much as it has. And that's where we got our website set up through it. We got our individual sales set up, our students union workshops, our education workshops, our corporate workshops. That's all been through Enactus. And again, the support has just been, so firstly the Enactus took it on, and I was like, yes. It was such a shock. Like I have terrible imposter syndrome, that anyone would want to know anything I do or would support anything I do, which is terrible, but I believe in what I'm doing, and that's enough for me most of the time.
Yeah.
But the support has been incredible. So the uptake it had when it first launched, the national media coverage it kind of gained, and it really made me realize, I was like, people are hopping on this in a big way, you know, like people must know it's a problem, but just didn't know what to do about it. And then the individual sales took off when we launched our website, and like we have hundreds of ambassadors all over Ireland now, which is incredible to think about. And then the students' unions jumped on board, and we have, I think, UCC, all of the LIT campuses, UL, Trinity, UCD, NUIG, like we're all over Ireland, and the only way is up. And recently then we had a lot of media coverage on a kind of political side of things. Now, whilst I myself am not an apolitical person, being apolitical is a position of privilege, as we know, but this is an initiative that has to be apolitical, because periods aren't political, or they shouldn't be. So, but we quickly realized that if we want to have the institutional change, say, for example, like they had in Scotland, or if we want to fight this on the larger scale that we need to start putting ourselves in front of people that make decisions. So we've had great reception that way as well, from the likes of Rebecca Moynihan. Councillor Elisa O'Donovan from Limerick has been of paramount importance to everything we do. She's so fantastic. But very, very exciting, last week on International Women's Day, Holly Cairns wore our badge and mentioned us in the Dáil.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh, I nearly keeled over, but it was such a huge moment, and it was really kind of like, we've had great support all along. We really, really have. But this was the icing on the cake. I was like, this is getting in front of some very important people, big decision makers who believe in what we're doing and support it. Now, in saying that, it wouldn't be a taboo issue or a woman's issue or anything like that if we didn't have a few ignorant comments, and if we didn't have people who didn't believe it was an issue. And the first thing I would say is that if you don't believe period poverty is an issue, I'm very happy for you, because you've clearly never experienced it and you live in quite a privileged little bubble, and that's great for you, but maybe open your mind a little bit. But a lot of the thing I get often is, you know, like, this isn't a feminist issue, and you shouldn't call yourself a feminist if you're focusing on such a small thing. Like, what about abolishing direct provision? What about X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, you know, firstly, this is one thing that has the capability of making people's lives a lot easier, so they can address those big issues. But also, I 100% am a feminist, and I'm an activist, and I am more than capable of caring about more than one thing at once. So that would be a huge kind of a critique we get, is like, such a small issue, why you're wasting your time? Nothing is a waste of time if it's making people's lives easier. And then, of course, you get the kind of period poverty. I've heard it all now, and like it's just like it's not a lot we get. We are very fortunate, and I do think our approach of being open and friendly does save us a lot of kind of, I don't want to call it hate, but negativity online and things like that. But it is definitely there. But I feel that that in itself is quite a win, because if our messaging is getting put in front of people that don't believe it's an issue, that's a demographic we need to be hitting in itself, you know?
Yeah.
And if it was smooth sailing and everyone who heard of us was like, well, yeah, I know that's an issue, we wouldn't really be helping anyone at all. So
yeah. No, that's the best way. No, that's the best way to look at it, though, because as you stated, like if the group is aiming for education, like your target should be like, yes, those who are already educated, but also those who don't know about it, and those who still have those negative connotations towards it. Definitely. So just the last question, what does equality mean to you?
What does equality mean to me? I think it means a lot of things. I think for me, equality means recognizing first what you have. I think that's a huge one. So I think how I think of it often is that, like, I'm privileged in a lot of ways, in that I have a job, I have a house, I have food, I have period products, I go to college. But in a lot of ways, people like me need equity, in that I'm a woman, so I'm less likely to get certain jobs or positions. I live in Limerick, which is considered a lower socioeconomic area sometimes. You know, they're small things, but they do amount sometimes. And I think equality means recognizing that you can be both privileged and not privileged in different ways. And equality to me breeds equity. So it's recognizing your shortcomings, educating yourself on them, and trying to enforce them in a way that you become someone who helps foster equality and equity. You know, give someone else, if you're doing something and someone else is going for it, give someone else a platform, hand someone else the microphone for something that you don't know a lot about, or it's not your fight to fight. Yeah, and I think a lot of it does come down to kind of self-reflection. So equality, God, this is very deep, very cerebral question. Equality means a lot of things, but I think at the end of the day, what it is making people happy, making people comfortable, making people safe, and giving people and giving equal opportunities to people as you would like to receive them.
Yeah, no, you answered that perfectly.
Okay, good.
Yeah, you answered that perfectly.
I know it's not a test or anything, but gosh, that got very cerebral all of a sudden.
No, do you know what though? But like, that's why I ask it, because again, like a lot of the times, like, you know, like for Equality Week, we are asking, it's like, and it's really hard to be put on the spot to think about it, because as you said, it's so many different ways, but like the way you said it, like just making people happy and just living in that world, like where, again, like with any time of the month where we debunk that myth and kind of, again, just build a society where like you should just, again, to kind of move away from poverty being seen as something that only happens there, like it happens here as well, and just because it happens in a smaller way doesn't mean that it's not real. So thank you so much.